You are asking me to leave.
I am not asking. I am telling you. Chioma is moving in on Saturday.
6 years, Victor.
I know how long it has been.
Do you remember who typed your first proposal? Who stayed up with you when the bank said no? Who paid the rent in 2019 when you had nothing?
Sandra.
You do not have to answer. I already know. And soon, you will know something too.
What is that supposed to mean?
It means read your company documents, Victor. Read them carefully. Every single one.
Sandra had a rule she never broke. She never asked for what she had already earned. She was not the kind of woman who made speeches or issued warnings. She was the kind of woman who worked, who stayed, who showed up at 6 in the morning with a clear head and a plan when everyone else was still sleeping. And for 6 years, 6 long, quiet, costly years, that was exactly what she did. She met Victor Okonkwo in 2017 at a small business workshop in Lekki. He was charming and hungry and completely broke. He had ideas the size of buildings and a bank account the size of a bus ticket. Sandra saw something in him that she could not fully explain, not then. She only knew that when he spoke about what he wanted to build, something in her leaned forward. They were not husband and wife. There was no ring, no ceremony, no document signed before any pastor or magistrate. But there was an understanding between them. The kind that does not need to be spoken because both people already feel it in their bones. You carry me now, I will carry you later. We are building this together. That was the contract. Unwritten, unspoken, and to Sandra, completely real. The first year was the hardest. Victor's graphic design business had 3 clients and no office. Sandra was working as an administrative officer in a firm in Victoria Island, earning enough to cover herself and quietly enough to cover him too. She paid the rent on the apartment they shared. She bought the laptop he used to design. She edited his proposals late at night after her own work was done, fixing grammar, sharpening language, making his ideas sound as big as he believed they were. He always said the same thing when she handed his work back to him. Sandra, what would I do without you? And she always smiled and said, nothing, because the answer was obvious and she did not need to say it out loud. By the 3rd year, things began to shift. Victor landed a contract with a mid-sized firm in Abuja, then another, then a referral that opened a door he had been knocking on for months. Sandra watched him grow with a satisfaction she kept close to her chest. She was not jealous of his success. She was proud of it. She had poured herself into it. His success was, in the most literal sense, partly hers. What Sandra did not advertise, what she had told no one except Auntie Rose, was that in 2019, when Victor's business was on the edge of collapse and he needed to register it properly to qualify for a government vendor list, it was Sandra who had gone to Mr. Adeyemi's law office in Ikeja and handled everything. Victor was in Abuja chasing a client. Sandra had the documents, the funds, and the authority. Mr. Adeyemi had asked her once, carefully, how she wanted the registration structured. Sandra had thought about it for a long moment. Then she had answered quietly and clearly. Mr. Adeyemi had nodded, written everything down, and the company, Okonkwo Creative Solutions Limited, had been registered with 2 directors, Victor Okonkwo and Sandra Eze. She never mentioned it. Victor never asked. The certificate sat in a file in Mr. Adeyemi's office and in a folder on Sandra's hard drive, and life continued. By 2022, Victor's face was everywhere, a profile in a Lagos business publication, speaking engagements, a government partnership that made his firm's name ring in the right circles. Emeka, his best friend since university, was always beside him at these events, laughing, celebrating, enjoying the light that Victor now walked in. Sandra was rarely photographed. She was usually behind the camera or at home preparing the follow-up emails or reviewing contracts before Victor signed them. Emeka knew everything. He had watched Sandra carry Victor for years. He had eaten her food in that Lekki apartment when Victor had nothing. He had borrowed money from her once, a quiet loan she never mentioned again. Emeka knew the full weight of what Sandra had invested. And he said nothing. Not to Sandra, not to Victor. He simply smiled and clinked glasses and kept his seat at the table. It was Auntie Rose who first noticed Chioma. Rose had come to visit Sandra in Lagos in March of 2023. She was Sandra's older sister, blunt, sharp-eyed, and completely without patience for nonsense. She had seen Victor's car parked outside a restaurant in Lekki one Saturday afternoon and had recognized the woman beside him, young, polished, laughing in a way that suggested she had never spent a single night worrying about anyone's rent. Rose said nothing to Victor. She went straight to Sandra. "Ah, that man is replacing you. I am telling you now so that later you cannot say nobody warned you." Sandra was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I know, Rose." Rose stared at her. "You know, and you are sitting here making his dinner." "I am not making his dinner. I am thinking." What Sandra was thinking, what she had been thinking for several months, was not about saving the relationship. That chapter had already closed inside her quietly, the way she closed most things. What she was thinking about was the company, about Mr. Adeyemi, about a file that Victor had never once opened. She called Mr. Adeyemi the following Monday. He confirmed everything she already knew. The registration was intact. Her directorship was fully legal and fully documented. She had equal standing in the company, right to financial records, signatory authority, and in the event of a dispute, a legitimate claim that no amount of charm or magazine coverage could erase. She thanked him. She booked another appointment, and she began, quietly, methodically, without drama, to prepare. Victor told her about Chioma on a Thursday evening in April. He said it the way people say things they have rehearsed, smoothly, without eye contact, with the posture of someone who had already decided the conversation was finished before it began. Chioma was moving in on Saturday. He hoped Sandra understood. He said she could take her things. He even offered to help her find somewhere to stay. Sandra stood in the living room of the apartment she had paid for in 2018 and 2019 and looked at this man she had carried for 6 years. She felt something move through her. Not rage, not grief. Something colder and more final than either of those. Recognition. The contract had been broken, not by her. She picked up her bag. She said what she needed to say. She walked to the door and she closed it softly behind her. She went to Auntie Rosie's flat in Surulere and she slept for 10 hours straight. The deep, untroubled sleep of a woman who has already made her decision and is no longer afraid of anything. Anything. The following week, Mr. Adeyemi sent the first letter. It arrived at Victor's office on a Tuesday morning. It was formal, precise, and completely devastating in its calmness. It outlined Sandra's position as co-director of Okonkwo Creative Solutions Limited. It requested a full audit of company finances from 2019 to present. It stated that any major business decisions, contracts, or financial movements made without the co-director's approval from that point forward would be legally contestable. Victor called Sandra 17 times that day. She did not pick up once. He called Emeka. Emeka, for the first time in years, had nothing smooth to say. He sat across from Victor in a bar in Lekki and looked at his hands and said very quietly, "I think you should get a lawyer." Victor did get a lawyer. The lawyer reviewed the documents, reviewed the registration, reviewed every signature and every date, and then told Victor what he did not want to hear. Sandra Eje was a co-director. The registration was clean, her claim was airtight. If she chose to exercise her rights fully, she could freeze accounts, contest contracts, and expose the company to a legal dispute that would take years and cost everything. Chioma moved in on Saturday as planned, but the apartment felt different. Victor sat in it and could not explain why it felt smaller than it used to, why the walls seemed closer, why every room reminded him of something he could not name. He drove to Surulere. He knocked on Rose's door. Rose opened it, looked at him for a long moment and said, "She is not here." "Where is she?" Victor said.
"Gone," Rose said, and closed the door. Sandra had taken a position she was offered 18 months earlier, a senior role at a firm in Abuja that had been pursuing her quietly while she was busy building someone else's dream. She had accepted it the same week she called Mr. Adiemi. She had packed what was hers. She had transferred her share of the company's value through a legal agreement that Mr. Adiemi negotiated on her behalf. Clean, final, and worth more than Victor had imagined she knew it was worth. She did not post about it. She did not call anyone to announce it. She simply left. Months later, a journalist writing a follow-up piece on Lagos's rising entrepreneurs asked Victor a question he was not prepared for. She had done her research. She had found the original company registration. She had seen two names. Who is Sandra Eze, and what role did she play in building Okonkwo Creative Solutions? Victor sat across from her under the studio lights and felt the full weight of 6 years pressing down on him at once. Every proposal Sandra had typed, every rent she had paid, every night she had stayed up making his ideas sound like what they were worth. The unspoken contract, the one he had broken without a second thought, was sitting in the room with him now, and it was not going anywhere. He opened his mouth. No words came. Somewhere in Abuja, Sandra Eze sat in her new office on the 4th floor of a building she had not built for anyone but herself. The evening light came through the window and settled across her desk. She had a meeting in the morning and a quiet dinner planned with no one she needed to impress. She did not think about Victor. She had already given him everything she had to give. The contract was closed. Was Sandra wrong to walk away without a word, or did Victor get exactly what he deserved? Drop your answer in the comments. We want to hear from you. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs it today. And drop a comment. We want to hear from you. God bless you.